Welcome back to our How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth life groups. Some of you are probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all you're learning right now. There's a group of you who are probably really excited about telling the person next to you at the ball game that you're studying hermeneutics, and then there's another group that's probably still trying to figure out how to pronounce the word. We want to celebrate you for making it in this far. There's a lot more to come, and you will be able to read the Bible with a lot more depth and insight if you continue to press on. But even more than that, it's my hope that you'll be able to take what you have learned and you'll be able to plant a seed so that you'll be able to see God in a new light and yourselves in a new light too. One of the biggest challenges we face as Christians is the problem of unanswered prayer. We count on God to help us land that perfect job, to heal a loved one, or to repair a broken relationship. This doesn't always happen. What would you say to somebody who is struggling with the problem of unanswered prayer? James, the brother of Jesus, gives us some advice about how we can pray in James chapter 1, verse 6. He says, "But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do." Whoa. I'm not sure what your answer was, but it probably wasn't as direct as James puts it here. In a nutshell, James says that the person who isn't confident that God is going to answer his prayer shouldn't expect to receive anything from God at all. In other words, the reason that God doesn't answer some prayers may be because people don't believe that God is going to answer those prayers positively at all. Okay, I don't know about you, but I'm a little uneasy about this. I wouldn't want to tell somebody that God didn't answer their prayer for a job, or that God didn't save their marriage because they simply didn't exercise enough faith in their prayers. The authors of How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth, though, encourage us to read things in its context, its historical context and its literary context. Its literary context, first of all, is the whole book. As best as we're able, we should really try to read a book in one sitting before we start to dig in to study it. But the second literary context is the paragraph, and that especially works well with letters like we have here. Once we've identified the paragraph, we're better able to ask the big question: what's the point? The NIV puts the paragraph break right before verse 2, but the ESV puts it right before verse 5, which makes a little bit more sense to me. James starts out by saying, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." James then continues where we began. "But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all that they do." Take a minute and reflect on that paragraph as a whole. In one sentence, what would you say that the main point is? What's James' point here? I said that the way that we can obtain wisdom is by asking God in faith without doubting it. Reading this verse in its proper context helps us to understand that not all unanswered prayer is necessarily a result of a lack of faith. But it's my opinion, if we ask God for wisdom in faith, believing that He's going to give us wisdom in His own timing, He's going to deliver on that. I've had this prayer answered countless times. Can you share a time when God gave you the gift of wisdom in a particular circumstance? As an aside, I think it's always important to exercise faith when we pray. But the way that we exercise faith depends in part on what we're praying for. I think God promises us wisdom when we ask Him for wisdom in faith. I think that's a guarantee. But God doesn't always answer our prayers to get out of a difficult circumstance. Paul's prayer to have God remove the thorn from his side, it wasn't answered. And Jesus' prayer to help him avoid the cross, to make another way besides the cross in the Garden of Gethsemane, well, it wasn't answered either. But the remarkable thing is that Jesus still exercised faith. Now, this is what he said in Mark 14:36. He prayed, "Abba, Father, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." Jesus was not confident that God would take away his mission, but he was confident that God was capable of doing it, as he's capable of doing all things. This was an expression of faith. In the end, he trusted the Father. And in the end, there are times when some of the good things that we pray for never come our way. But even if they don't, we too can find rest in the Father's will. Have a great night, and don't forget to look for ways to encourage one another to love and good deeds.